Yo, what's up, guys? It's Young XAV. You are tapping in with UR Chicago.
100 bands, hug up on a post, she do the money dance. From a glance, way she throw it back just got me in a trance. In my plans, took her home and kept it to a one-night stand. Yeah, swear to God, this life is lived so.
Once upon a time, there was a little boy. His name was Xavier. He grew up to be a rock star. That's Young XAV. Young XAV. Rock star, whiskey extraordinaire. Rock star, plain and simple. I mean, Young XAV is Mr. Steal Your Girl. So the name Young XAV actually, and the whole reason why I started making music was me and my buddy at a time, we were basically throwing like hotel parties every weekend. We would just get a bunch of different people, different girls, different hotel, and we would just throw parties. And I think one time we were at a hotel and I woke up the next morning all hungover or whatever, and I was like, I woke up and the first thing they said, they're like, yo, do you know what you did last night? And off the tip of my tongue I was like, no, but that was Young XAV, that wasn't me. So that just became a thing with my friends. What inspires my music, I would say, is probably life decisions. I think my music's very narrative oriented. So I would say just going out, making bad decisions is pretty much like the epitome of what defines my writing process. Artists that inspire me off the top of the head would be 21 Pilots, for sure. I love their whole narrative aspect of like when they work on their projects. And they're project artists. I love project artists. You know, they do their thing and then they're gone for like a year. 21 Pilots, Imagine Dragons, Johnny Cash, probably the Beatles. Those are like my off the top of the head. No, my mom's a huge supporter. I love it. There's these two girls actually in New York. I talk about them all the time. That like questions like this are asked. Kayla and Allie. They've literally been supporting since like I've dropped my first song ever on SoundCloud, and they're just amazing. They flew out here for my listening party and I talk to them every day. Like, definitely my biggest supporters. I'm just gonna go in order. I have a few tattoos, kinda. The first tattoo I ever got, my mom loved this one. It's a silverback gorilla on my hand. Everyone always makes fun of me. All my friends are like, that's your first tattoo, is the gorilla on my hand. And I mean, a big part of my family and everything that we like fighting a lot, you know, mixed martial arts, boxing, that's a big part of my background. And it's something I love to do. So it's a story. When I first started boxing, there was this coach that I had. His name was Marty, and he had a nephew. And the first time I ever went sparring, he told his nephew, he's like, hey, spar with this kid. He's not any good, and he's new, but he hits like a gorilla. So when I got my first tattoo, that's where that came from. The second tattoo that I have is the DCVI. That's on my knuckles. I wanted something that represented Chicago. I didn't want to get like a Chicago flag or stars. So it's essentially my zip code, or the Chicago zip code in Roman numerals, DCVI. The third tattoo that I got were these bats right here. I dropped an album After Dark, and the bats slowly became like a mascot of like my brand somehow. So when I finished up, the day before I finished up my album, actually, I got these tattoos right here. It's 3 little bats. This guy right here, the Slow Down. I was in New York on my birthday, February 4th, yeah, this past year. I don't know, it was like 9 a.m. I was drunk with my best friend, and I was just like, I need a tattoo. And the guy was like, okay, what do you want it to say? And I was like, slow down. So, I don't know, yeah.
Are you slowing down?
No. Yeah. And then the last one that I just got, it's all peeling and gross, which I love it. I mean, this guy I just got, it's a switchblade on my forearm. I figured you couldn't get any more cringe because I have a gorilla on my hand. So I have a switchblade on my forearm, and it's from one of my favorite plays, actually. 12 Angry Men, and essentially it's a story about 12 jurors who, whether it's because they're racist or it's because they just want to go home and they don't care, they have to decide the verdict of this kid who was being accused for murder with a switchblade. And in reality, there was one of the jurors, he was the 8th juror, and he decided that to play devil's advocate, essentially, and one by one he convinced every single person in that room to recount their votes, and in the end, you can assume that he wasn't guilty. So the switchblade is kind of a reminder just to do what's right, even if everyone else is against it, or if it doesn't, you know, if it feels hard to still continue on. So that's why I got that, and then I just got the color on there. So that's pretty much the tattoos. Besides rapping, that's a good question. Everyone always asks me that, and I don't know what to say. I mean, I drink a bit. I drink a bit. Fighting's a big thing, like I mentioned earlier, with my family. I mean, every month it's like Christmas when the fight nights come around. I get together with my cousins and stuff. We watch the fights. Train when I can if I'm not doing music, but for the most part, I mean, music is Young XAV, you know, when I'm Young XAV, so that's everything. After Dark is my brainchild for sure. I mean, that thing, I would say that was the start of me really making music. I've only really been on record making music for 2 years. The whole first year that I was making music, I dropped like 3 songs and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even tell like my friends that I was making music. It was just whoever found it, found it. The next year after that, I dropped an EP 6 months before I started working on After Dark. And I mean, again, it was just a hobby. I think once I came up with the idea of making an album, which slowly became After Dark, that's when things were like, all right, I'm making music, let's take it seriously. And it became like this whole thing, which built my brand. It built, essentially this time period of my life on record. And yeah, I built like my fan base too. So After Dark, that's like my baby. Creative process. I think my creative process is simple, right? I mean, fall in love or make a bad decision, or both. I mean, seriously, that's pretty much what it comes down to. Is I'm experiencing a lot of life is when I'm making a lot of music. My songs are typically about girls or heartbreak or just turning up and making bad decisions and stuff like that. I mean, I can't remember who it was exactly, but one of my like supporters said there's 2 types of XAV. There's vintage XAV, which is like the old pop rap that you get, like the lovey-dovey stuff with girls, and then there's like turnt XAV, which is like life is grand and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, just pretty much living life, I mean, again, my music is my truth and my story, so whatever I'm experiencing kind of gets translated into a song. Is my life grand? Life is grand, yeah, life can be grand. I think that song, Life is Grand, is actually a pretty negative context, I think. Especially, I mean, the subject matter is just about turning up and making bad decisions, So anytime I say life is grand, I wouldn't necessarily be like, my life is good. It's just more like, all right, we're getting ratchet and we're just doing things because life is grand, So that's where that comes from. The lyric "Soho, SoCal, claim my spot" and "On the Low" was actually a freestyle, which was like the coolest thing ever. So I was working on that song "On the Low" with Ryan. I had my verse done. It was the end of my verse, and then for some reason the recording kept going, but the beat just dropped out. So I was like, and I was like, Soho, SoCal, claim my spot, 1 ho, 2 ho, third a thought. That's where that just came from, and it was like the coolest thing ever. And then we did a retake on it, whatever. But essentially the lyric is Soho, which is the East Coast of New York, and then you have SoCal, which is the southern point of California, different ends of the country, yeah. So, I mean, that's exactly that, is I want to be international, I want to be global. So I took these 2 farthest points in the country that I live in and just, this is mine, and I'm going to take it over, Proper 12. Proper 12, man. Proper 12. A big part, again, is fighting. And, I take pride in saying I'm not one of those bandwagoners when it comes to Conor McGregor. I started watching him very early on in his fights, so kind of following his career, it became very fucking awesome to meet the guy. That was the cool thing. How do I even start with Proper 12, man? That's such a... I'm even trying to think where, like, the catalyst of all that was. Oh, okay. That's where that started. So, I was working on a song called On the Low with Ryan, and I linked up with my team, Clark Street Collective, and we were going to shoot a visual for On the Low, like a little teaser to essentially announce the single. And they were like, yo, you need a bottle of whiskey for this shot. So Proper 12 just came out literally that week. I had a couple bottles, and I was like, all right, I'll bring this bottle with, because whiskey's like my thing. I'll just bring it with, whatever. So in the trailer, I always assumed that on production sets, you're not supposed to show labels. I just felt like you're not supposed to. I don't know. So I remember turning the label, and I think one of the guys, Noah, I think it was specifically, I'm going to give him credit on this one. But he was like, no, we're going to show the label. So we showed the label. Didn't think anything of it. We dropped that little teaser, everything. And then I remember waking up at like 3 a.m, looking at my notifications, and it said Notorious Conor McGregor liked your Instagram post. I was like, what the hell? Like, what? So that kind of stemmed into us being on like the radar essentially for them. So eventually they were having like a super secret like tour that they were doing for Proper 12, where they only invited like bar owners and like Binny's, like the owner of Binny's in Illinois and stuff. And we ended up going to that and then meeting Connor and him knowing exactly who I was because of that video.
Bands, hug up on a post, she do the money dance from a glance. Way she throw it back just got me in a trance. In my plans, took her home and kept it to a
Shout out Young Zay, respect.
12, we're gonna get that brand deal right here, right?
Yes.
Take over the world, boy.
And every now and then he'll pop in and like a a photo or a video, leave a comment. So it's just really cool to kind of have that support from my idol. About my Chicago, it's my home, man. It's my home. I don't know anywhere but Chicago is where I'm from. I like to think that I would die here one day, but yeah, I feel like I'm a culmination of that somehow in some way. Just my experience growing up in the city. It just played a role psychologically in leading to this path of music, even if my music isn't very Chicago influenced. Definitely just who I am as a person is, and that's always gonna carry with me in everything I do. The revamp. So, the album was great. I dropped the album After Dark in February. The album alone was probably like 10 times the amount of streams that I've ever had in my life, because it's literally over 250,000 streams, which may not seem like a lot, but for something that I worked really hard on and being a new artist like that, that's huge to me. But in that time after that I dropped the album, I kind of just went dark. I went on hiatus for a bit, and I think it's time to kind of get the gears back together. So I got with the team and we decided that we're gonna do this thing called the revamp, which, funny play on words. That's what the word means, revamp, to like rebrand and stuff. But I guess the bat thing is part of my brand and stuff, so the revamp makes sense. But essentially what it is July 19th, announcing my first headline show. It's just my show, so there'll be no other artists underneath other than my little brother from New York. Will be Colin Stork. I have a few songs with him, so he'll be flying out from New York, open up the show. I'll have my DJ play a few sets in between, and then I get an hour and a half set, or hour 20 set, just to go through my catalog. But that's the start of the revamp, and that's where that came from. Is like, all right, we have a project, we have like a physical, people know who I am. Now let's apply it somewhere, and that's obviously a performance. So that's what we're gonna do, because the album was made in the sense that it needed to be performed. That was the whole concept. I made it in mind that there would be a performance one day, and I don't feel comfortable moving on to my next project without giving it, its purpose, which was to perform it. So we'll have the After Dark show August 9th, announcing that July 19th, which is after you're watching this. So, you already know the news. Hopefully, if I advertise well, you'll know the news. If not, get your tickets. But after that, too, before the show, my team and I are going on a 10-day road trip, literally everywhere. So, Denver, Colorado, in Vegas for a few days, Los Angeles, Arizona, like everywhere, just to kind of, one, we're going to shoot my first music video ever, which I'm really excited for. And two, just kind of document more stuff. Maybe I'll make some music on the road and stuff, and see what we bring home with. With the revamp too, there'll be a lot of music coming out. So I have a few singles. I have a single dropping July 26th. Hollywood Thrills, probably my most turned song up to date. I like it a lot, so I'm really excited. Hopefully that's what we end the show with, if people like it. And then I want to do 3-song EPs, every other month, just dropping content. So definitely a lot going on, especially with the whole revamp. We're rebranding everything. We know what my brand is. We know what people, I know what me is. I know what's authentic, and we know what the people kind of pick up on that based on what I give out there. So we're wiping everything clean. All social media is getting wiped out, and we're just rebuilding from the ground up. All the posts are going to be entirely targeted towards branding. Not advertising, but just putting you. If you go down my Instagram feed, it's the Young Zave world. What does that look like? The whole aesthetic. You could figure it out just by going on my page. So whiskey vibes and old school stuff, and yeah, just good times. It's the revamp. Thanks for watching my interview with You Are Chicago. I'm Young Zave. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.